What's up everybody? Today I'm going to be showing you a quick, easy method for installing an electronic fan on your car. So before I put this in the car, I wanted to lay out the wiring just so you can kind of get an idea of what's going on here. Just to let you know, I did get the wiring kit as well as the fan off of Amazon. I think the wiring kit was around $30 and the fan was like $40. What we have here, there's a relay that will plug into here. And there's only one direction that it will fit into the slots, so that makes it pretty easy because you can't really screw it up. But as far as the wiring, what we're going to have is this black wire goes to a temperature sensor. This I will have to splice into my radiator hose. Just FYI, this was not part of the wiring kit. And then we have a short red wire which will run to the fan. There will be a ground wire that runs on the other side of the fan that we'll have to wire in as well. We have a brown wire that will be wired to an ignition source. And then last of all, we have this red wire that runs to a fuse. And then on the other side of the fuse, it will be wired on to the hot side of the battery. Luckily on this car, removing the fan's pretty easy. There's just 4 of these 10mm bolts that you have to remove. All right, so got the bolts off and it comes off. Then I need to remove this shroud. So the fan came with these little attachments, I guess. They're almost like a zip tie, but what you do is you put them through the fan. It goes right through your radiator. And then on the other end, you clip this on, push it through, get it nice and tight, and then you just clip off the excess. Pretty similar to a zip tie. So hopefully you can see that, but yeah, it slides through there pretty easy. Okay, and then as I mentioned on the front part of the radiator, see if I can get this one-handed, that slips on. I don't think I can get it one-handed, but I think you get the idea. You would just pull that tight and then clip off the excess hanging out, and the fan came with 4 of those, so you do 1 on each corner. So the black wire goes to the temperature sensor. I've cut it a little bit here with the excess black wire that I cut off. I'm going to go ahead and make a wire for a ground that I can connect to the fan. Now the long red wire, that is going to be what connects to the battery. So I'm going to go ahead and get that one set up. And you just have to remember on that one, it goes through the fuse. So you connect it to the fuse and then to the battery. So the next thing I need to do is to find an ignition wire to connect this harness to. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to use this test light. I'm just going to hook this to the negative battery terminal. And I've actually done this before, so I've kind of found where I need to be. But what you need to do is simply poke around with this, touch one of the wires. As you can see right now, there's no power. But once I turn the ignition on, I'm going to come back and test the same wires. And if you get power on one of those, that's going to tell you that the power is only running through it when the ignition is turned on. And that's what you're looking for. So I don't know if you can see that, but the light is on now. I have the ignition on, so I know that that wire is going to give me an ignition power source. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut into that wire and splice it and hook this wiring harness up in there. So I think I pretty much got this thing wired up. Just remember, I always think the black wire is going to go to ground, but the black wire that goes to the relay is actually for the temperature sensor. So I'm going to hook it up right here. Before I do that, I need to screw this in. I've read different things. The ground for this is actually the thermostat itself. So on the instructions it says not to put any like Teflon tape around it or anything, but I've read what a few other people have done, and they just put a little Teflon tape right here up at the top to try to prevent leaks, but it also is going to have some connection down below to ground it. The fan, you can see on this side right here, I have a black for the ground, a red that's for the positive that goes to the relay. The black ground, I just grounded it right here. The brown wire is the ignition switch, and it's tied in right there. And then the red or hot wire from the relay to the battery goes around there to the fuse, and then from the fuse I will connect it to the battery. I haven't connected to the battery yet. That's the last thing I'm going to do. So I'll finish these last couple connections and then we'll start it up and see if it works. All right, so I have it all wired up and it's do or die time now. I'm going to start the car, see if it works. As I was topping off coolant, I noticed that my fix on the radiator hose has a little bit of a leak, so I'm going to have to address that, but right now I want to check and see if the fan works. So it started up as normal. The real question is whether the fan's going to kick on once it gets to temperature. I'll probably have to do something about that air filter. It's probably not a good idea having your hot air blowing directly onto your intake. You can see a little bit of a drip there. That's what I was talking about from the radiator hose, so I'll have to do something about that. But let's give it a minute here, get it up to temp and see what happens. Okay, so I ran it for about 5-10 minutes and the thermostat is a 190-degree thermostat, so that's when it should kick on. The fan never kicked on. I don't know if it didn't get up to temperature or if there's another issue. I may have to play around with this a little bit. But the coolant leak is starting to get worse and worse, so I'm just going to shut it off for now. I'm going to fix that coolant leak and then I'm going to come back and test it again. So I got the temperature gauge and the jacket all installed there. And then I went ahead and put the temperature sensor in and hooked up the wires, started it up, and now it's just a matter of letting this thing get up to temperature and seeing if the fan will kick on. So I've let this car warm up a bit. It's a little bit noisy, but what you're hearing is that fan. It is actually on, so that is a good sign. That's what I want to see. You can see where it's at right there on the temperature gauge, right about in the middle. So I should mention that I went ahead and added a ground onto that thermostat jacket. It goes from there, hooks on right there, right where I have my ground for the fan. I don't know if that was part of the reason that it didn't originally work. I didn't have that hooked up, but I thought I would throw it on there just in case, and it's working now, so I'm just leaving it. But let's go ahead and give this thing a test drive, see how it's running. So with the electric fan, there's two main differences that I notice as I'm driving around. First of all, is it's much quieter. And second of all, it just feels a little more modern or a little more responsive. Supposedly you free up a little power when you make this modification. I can't say that there's noticeably more power, but it does seem to rev just maybe a little bit quicker. As far as cooling goes, the electronic fan seems to cool just fine. You know, I mean, it hasn't overheated. It never overheated with the stock fan either. So I think either one is fine as far as that goes. Hopefully this video was helpful for you. For more car videos, just click my logo to subscribe. And as always, remember to like and share the video. Thanks.